Italian migration to Western Australia began very early in the history of the colony. A combination of social, economic and political events, both in Italy and Australia, led to many an Italian immigrant arriving in Western Australia. Significant events, such as the Gold Rush period, brought people of many nationalities to Western Australia, greatly increasing the population of this very young state. The pioneering environment was an obvious challenge to all immigrants, Italians included, due mainly to the competition, economic conditions, language barriers and cultural differences. From when the first true Italian migrants set foot in Western Australia in 1836, Dr. Luigi Giustiniani, there have been many Italians who have made their mark in Western Australia and have contributed to the development of this state over the years. Ezio Luisini was one such person. Born on the 14th of February 1891, Ezio Luisini arrived in Western Australia on the 15th of January 1909 to meet his father Tobias Luisini. He came from an impoverished family in the Umbria region, north of Italy, with no qualifications and, like many Italians, with only a suitcase in hand. After working in the timber industry in the forests of the southwest, Ezio Luisini, a very determined young man and with a strong desire to improve his own economic conditions, was able to purchase premises in William Street, in what is now Northbridge, and gradually develop a wine saloon and a drapery and supply business which catered to the needs of the Italian migrants. He sold them clothes, lent them money for purchases, and pointed them in the direction of work opportunities. Ezio Luisini was like a father figure or mentor to many Italians, respected by all. As his business prospered, Ezio Luisini made his first purchase of a few hundred acres of land in the Wanneroo area in 1924 to plant a vineyard and make wine. To clear the land as well as developing his extensive vineyard, he offered employment to Italian immigrants, many of whom earned their first shillings there before finding employment elsewhere. Within 4 years, he had transformed the virgin bush into a flourishing vineyard. The wine initially produced was from black Shiraz grapes, but there were other limited varieties as well. In his later years, he was able to expand the varieties of grapes. His initial wine was not special, but it did appeal to the recently arrived Italian immigrants who longed for the food and drink to which they were accustomed back home. The advent of World War II was devastating for many an Italian immigrant, especially those interned during that period. Ezio Luisini was one of the many taken initially to Fremantle Jail before their transfer to either Rottnest Island, Harvey or Kalgoorlie Boulder on the way to Lovejoy in South Australia. Ezio Luisini was sent to the Kalgoorlie Boulder internment camp, and while interned, his drapery and wine business were managed by his wife. On his release, Ezio Luisini was able to purchase more land, and he continued to expand his vineyard. He remained a pillar of strength in the Italian community, helping many of the immigrants with advice, advances of money, and for the needy new arrivals, shelter and work at his vineyard. Despite his excellent business acumen, Ezio Luisini displayed no personal signs of the wealth he was generating. His lifestyle was ordinary in the extreme, and he worked 7 days a week, either behind the counter of his William Street premises or at his vineyard in Wanneroo. He lived by his favourite saying, "All my life, the terrifying shadow of poverty overshadowed me and drove me on." When Ezio Luisini died in 1964, his vineyard was reputedly the largest privately owned vineyard in the Southern Hemisphere.
There is no doubt that the Italian community in Western Australia have influenced our culture, our food and our love of wine. And it is here at the old Luisini winery in Wanneroo that one day that contribution will be on public display. Over the next 2 years, the National Trust will coordinate the restoration of this building with the help of some of Perth's best-known Italian families. The Luisini winery was once the largest in the Southern Hemisphere, stretching hundreds of acres through what is now Wanneroo. The winery was Italian Ezio Luisini's passion, and today I'm very privileged to be out here with some of his dearest friends. Now I have with me Enzo Serna, Giuseppe Rispoli and Tom Del Sogna. Several generations of some
very good.
I don't go so well on the Italian. My accent wasn't perfect there, I'm sure you can probably tell. Under the watchful eyes of Maria and Rosa, the men gave me an excellent insight into Ezio's life. A draper by trade, he started the vineyard as a hobby, but it grew to overtake his drapery business. Luisini arrived in Australia in 1908. After internment during World War II, he worked laying railway sleepers and saved the money to buy land in Wanneroo. He lived by a simple philosophy. All my life, the terrifying shadow of poverty overshadowed me and drove me on. Are you excited about the prospect of this being open as a museum and a piece of history?
I like that very much. Very much. I think they have a lot of people coming here. It would be fantastic.
And we're hoping that through the, again, restoration of this as a project, and a very important project for the National Trust, that we will be able to again rekindle some of those memories. We don't want to lose those memories.
This wonderful man, he did this all on his own.